Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Melissa here. Melissa, you're somebody that's been in the world of technology in Miami for quite some time, and you've had a really amazing impact. I've got to see it. Miami has now become like a tech place, and part of the reason is because of what you and your family's done. You've built up, I think, the biggest tech conference in Miami, eMerge Americas. It's a great time. I was there last year. And it's really become an amazing place for a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs just building, and some that are more established too, to just all connect and to figure out the latest trends that are happening in the area and to build. And so I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great to get to know you, and I appreciate all the support you give us.
Yeah, awesome. So just kind of going back to the beginning, Melissa, how did your interest specifically in the world of tech, of business, of wanting to be a business leader in this area? I mean, I know your father was involved in building a tech company. How did this interest for you specifically begin?
Yeah, I'd say, the interest of entrepreneurship definitely started as a little girl.
Mhm.
Born and raised right here in Miami, but my parents are Cuban immigrants. I'm first generation American. And I think that entrepreneurial spirit is sort of in the blood, in the DNA of most, if not all, immigrant families. And, I saw my father build several companies and scale them from when I was a little girl. And so that's where I'd say, if you're asking where the interest came from, I always wanted to be in meetings with him. I always wanted to be in the boardroom. I wanted to be a sponge as much as I could be. I studied business both in college and for my master's degree as well. It's just been something I've always, been in tune with, and I wanted to build something myself as well.
Mhm. So it's great that you had these experiences when you were young, and that he kept you around and got you involved with them. And it's good that you've also chosen that path too, because some people, they get exposed to this and then they kind of go
Yeah.
everywhere they want. You really seem to like it. Was there specific things that stood out to you that drew you to this world initially? Like, and what would those be?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of a long story, but the company that my father built and ended up selling to Verizon in 2011 is a company called Terramark Worldwide. It was an IT infrastructure, so data center and cloud computing company. And I worked for him in that company for many, many years. And I think that's sort of the intersection between business and finance and technology. So I'd studied business and finance. I never really was in the tech space, but with this opportunity, I was able to realize, the impact that technology, and in this case, it was the infrastructure for the technology, what it could have in the world. And that's sort of where my exposure and my interest started to blossom. And after the sale of the company, my father and I essentially had a conversation, and there were two main emotions that stood out. One was passion, very, very passionate for this community. As I mentioned, we're an immigrant family, and very blessed that my grandparents had the fortitude to flee communism and land in what we believe is the best country in the world. But specifically, we ended up landing in South Florida. And so very, very passionate about building our businesses here and providing opportunity for the next generation as much as we can here. The other emotion was frustration. And you may say, why frustration? And that was because, in my case, working for a large global technology company, because we had offices all over the world and we built data centers all over the world. But working for a company based in Miami was very frustrating. We would get asked all the time, why are you headquartered in Miami? Why is a company like that, you know, in this space in Miami? And then it was very difficult hiring as well, and evangelizing, top tier tech talent to either stay here or move here was very difficult. So those two emotions, passion and frustration, are what led us to say, is there anything we could do to help at least try to change that narrative moving forward? And that's where the idea of eMerge Americas was born, just from that conversation.
What was Emerge Americas going to be like initially? Was the idea like, let's make this big conference that we have all these different companies showcasing their products and we've got people talking about what they're doing? Like, what was the initial thinking? It was just, let's make a conference and bring some people together.
Yeah, great question. So initially, it started as a convening. We realized that circa 2012, when we started talking about this, there was no tech convening anywhere near Miami, to be honest. And so we started studying established tech hubs like Austin, like Boston, like New York, like Barcelona, and realizing that there was a core convening in all of these thriving tech hubs. So that's where the idea of bringing the call them tech ecosystem stakeholders together came from. We wanted to bring together entrepreneurs, investors, global tech organizations, academia, and government all under one roof, but here in Miami. We did think big from the beginning. We've hosted it at the Miami Beach Convention Center from year one, and we're going into our 11th year because we always think big and wanted, to be ambitious and think, maybe this could become a large global tech conference. But to be honest, we just wanted to see if there was any traction at all in year one and then decide, okay, what will we continue to do? But, we always had it in the back of our minds that hopefully this would grow into something much bigger than we even anticipated. And that's why we decided, all right, we're going to do it at the convention center to begin with, because we could have done it at a smaller venue early on.
What was year one like? I mean, you sent out a lot of, I'm sure you advertised or spread the word in the area. Were you expecting the kind of demand that you had, or were you surprised in any way of the interest?
Yeah, it was a mix of emotions. We evangelized the first eMerge Americas conference for 2 years, so from 2012, and then we opened our doors May of 2014. And we had a lot of pushback, a lot of people saying, why would you do that in Miami? Doesn't seem
What?
to be any ecosystem, thriving ecosystem there. Why would we support that? But thankfully, we had some core supporters that really kind of gave us that runway, if you will, to be able to open our doors year one. And we were anticipating, if we could have 3,000 people year one, that would have been massive for us. We had almost 5,000 in the first year. And I think that made us realize, okay, I think there is a void in the market. And even though we had pushback, we realized I think there was enough demand to continue to build and grow this.
How did you get the word out to get 5,000 people? That's a lot of people for year one.
Yeah, we did a lot of the traditional digital marketing, that's for sure. We weren't shy about, our ad spend. We needed to get out there. This is a concept, right, that we were pushing. But I think part of it also was we had a lot of great relationships from our Terramark days. And I think a lot of support we got, which was exciting, was okay, we're not so sure about this conference, but we believe in both of you and in your vision. And I think that could only get us so far, right? So we had a lot of trust built with a lot of different organizations and companies in the tech world. And I think it was exciting to see them support us, but then even more exciting after year one for them to say, okay, now we get it, like we'll come back because this actually makes sense. And so I think it was a combination of a few different tactics, I guess, to be able to reach almost 5,000 people in year one.
Melissa, how has the conference changed since year one? I mean, you mentioned it was this convening of people. You have structured programming, you have
Mhm.
exhibitors, you have different themes, I think, each year that you really try to
Yes.
focus on, and different types of speakers that you bring out to highlight them. How has the conference evolved most since you started?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a journey and a roller coaster, and evolved is the right word. Our name is eMerge Americas for several reasons, but one of them is we concentrate on emerging technologies and relevant trends. So, we're not focusing on one theme every year. We want to make sure that we're innovating also as we're growing. The size of the conference has obviously grown for several reasons. I think part of it is the South Florida ecosystem has definitely grown over the last decade, but then obviously post COVID also, I think, opened this global lens on our community. And of course, we'd never want to go through a global pandemic again, but there was a silver lining, not only for Miami and South Florida, but for the entire state of Florida. And I think there's no doubt that it added fuel, right, to a foundation that was already there. This year, we're going to be concentrating on probably a lot of themes that you're well aware of, Ben, and AI, quantum, dual use and defense technology, health tech, fintech. And then we always have sort of across all of our stages this underlying discussion about entrepreneurship, the venture landscape, inspirational journeys, to help our attendees kind of walk away with insights that'll help them either scale their business or help them grow either personally or professionally.
What are you most excited about for this year, Emerge Americas?
Oh, that's a good question. There are so many incredible speakers that we have lined up already for this year. I think one that I'm very intrigued and excited to hear live is Palmer Luckey, who is the founder of Oculus that sold and then now founded a company called Anduril Industries, all focused on defense tech. Again, kind of going back to one of the verticals and themes we're concentrating on this year. I'm excited to hear his talk. But I think what I'm always most excited about is the post eMerge feedback and reaction that we get from startups that meet investors, startups that connect with corporate partners, that end up hiring talent that they met. So all those sort of success stories that happen through, call them accidental collisions, is what I think keeps us going and gets us excited to continue to build on this.
I agree. That's an important piece, and it makes the tech roots, much more longer and all around
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely.
So, I mean, this year is going to be, I'm sure it'll be pretty amazing. I mean, last year when I was there, it was a great time. One of the things that I find that's interesting is that you also bring some people that maybe are outside of like the traditional tech space into the space, and they're very passionate about it. I mean, one person, for example, is Pitbull. And you guys have
Hmm.
had a great relationship with him, I think, for a long time.
Yes.
He spoke at Emerge, I think, last year. Was talked a lot about technology. I mean, like, is that something that just has naturally developed that he's been passionate about, or have you guys like really tried to help bring him and other people like him into the space?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, we always thread in these incredible entrepreneurial journeys, right? And there is absolutely no doubt that he is an incredible entrepreneur. And he's not only, Mr. Worldwide, global artist. He is an investor and he has built multiple brands outside of music as well. So I think there is a relevance there. And with him in particular, he's an investor in eMerge. He's been part of our journey since almost before eMerge had a name, and has really rolled up his sleeves and helped us build eMerge. He's one of our founding partners. So I think with him, there's multiple connections, but I think there, like you said, there are many speakers that I, I find super interesting when people, kind of see them and say, what's the connection? And then they hear them speak and say, oh, I totally get it now. So I think you'll see a lot of that throughout eMerge. There's always a reason that makes sense for our thought leaders to be positioned the way they are on our across our multiple stages.
I
But
mean,
he's awesome, and he'll be back this year too.
that's great. I mean, his nickname is, Mr. 305, and like he really cares about 305. Like you see it at your
Oh,
conference.
no question. I mean, he bleeds 305. This is the community where he was born and raised, and he's uberly committed to helping continue to build community here to help provide opportunity for the next generation. He's very invested in the education sector. He's built charter schools, I think up to 12 now, and is just constantly making an impact and a difference. And he doesn't have to, right? He does that because he wants to. And we love having him. And yeah, this year he'll be back. I'm actually moderating a discussion with him this year, and
Very
it'll be
nice.
interesting, the intersection of technology in music, how AI is playing a role, and also across other sectors that he's investing in, like education.
That's great. It's great he'll be back.
Yeah,
I think he's a powerful force for the conference and has a
for the
good.
conference, for the community, for
Uh,
our state. I mean, he's just a great ambassador, very
great.
passionate about what he does, which is
So,
awesome.
Melissa, what does your day to day look like? I mean, the conference takes time to plan. People sometimes think these things happen in a couple of months. I think it's a year long effort every year.
Over a year, yeah.
Yeah. So what goes?
Yeah, I love that question, man. Thank you for asking, because eMerge itself is much more than a conference, right? The conference is the culmination of a year's worth of work. And what are we doing all year other than, of course, planning for this massive event? We host 25 to 30 other smaller convenings throughout the year, whether it's roundtables, startup pitch events, family office specific events, investor founder um, meetups. We're also publishing and tracking venture activity throughout our state, and we do that twice a year. So we want to be evangelists of our ecosystem, but we also want to have the data to back it up. And so now we're, providing that data for our network as well. And then lastly, we have a very robust accelerator, and we've been doing that for years. We have a cohort of 100 startups from around the world that go through a 6-week virtual program that then ends and also culminates at the conference. So there is a lot of moving parts. We're a full team. But to answer your question about the actual conference, we start planning, it's like 15 or 16 months before. So we're already planning for next year's now.
It's that long before.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Why
moving
so
parts.
much time?
It takes a while for, logistics, dates, venues, locking in some of the larger keynote speakers. It's just like a puzzle, right? And you got to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And we've learned over now almost 11 years, a method to the madness. And it's about 15 months of planning.
So 15 months, it's quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, tech has evolved a lot, I think, in Miami, and especially over the last couple of years. I mean, you talked a little bit before about COVID and the impact that that had. A lot of people came to the state. How did you guys handle that as a conference, just as, somebody who really cares about the Miami community and the tech community? I mean, what was
Yeah.
that like for you, Melissa, just during that time? Because it was intense.
Very, very, very tough, to be honest. It was, as it was, I think, for a lot of people personally and then professionally as well. For us, directly, eMerge that year was like this year, it's supposed to be in March. So our dates fluctuate between March and April depending on how the holidays fall, Easter, Passover, etc. And that year, the conference was set for end of March, like it was this year. So we were already at the end, crossing T's, dotting I's, about to begin the build out in the convention center. And then, the world shuts down. So for us, it was very, very difficult. I think I had a full on panic attack. No question. What are we going to do? This is, the culmination of everything we do all year. We've made so many promises to our partners. Like, how do we go back to them now and say, we can't do it? But I think there was so much learning for that for me personally, as a leader in our organization and in how our partners reacted, which was very humbling. And that was that all of our partners said, don't worry, at some point this will happen again, and then you will deliver on everything that we contractually had promised them. And I think that was amazing for us because they didn't have to do that. They could have said, we want our money back and you can't deliver on this year. So they stuck by us. That was a massive help. And again, like I said, very humbling. And then we also had to, I mean, I don't really like to use this word pivot, but we did have to do a lot of pivoting throughout those almost 3 years, 2.5 years, which was great too. It opened up all these other channels for us where our partners were coming to us to say, we've never done a virtual pitch competition. Can you do that for us? We've never curated, a virtual program. Can you help us host that or put it together? So all of that ended up also being very much a learning process for us. And then the whole how can I help tweet happened December, I think 2020, and that just opened up a marketing tsunami into South Florida. And that was, Mayor Francis Suarez who sent out that tweet. And, our mayor of our county, Daniela Levine Cava, also was very supportive of innovation and technology and pro-business. And I think all of that was almost like this perfect storm of elements coming together that opened up this, new lens into our community. And it's been ever growing since, that's for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I think that time, I mean, just somebody who's grown up in Florida about half my life at this point,
Mm-hmm.
that those couple of years like completely changed what the city, what Miami looks like, what the area around us looks like. And I think it's been for the better in a lot of ways. And it's great that you guys have been able to expand to handle that, and that you guys were able to make it through COVID and do well there, because it's an important
Thank you.
event you have for the area. Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
just like I would just say, most like one of the last questions I have, just your vision for eMerge. Where do you
Mhm.
see it going over the next 5 to 10 years? What are your short-term goals, your long-term goals? What's this big picture vision you have now?
Yeah. So I think big picture, our mission at eMerge started out as we want to help change the narrative on how South Florida is seen. I think that narrative has changed already, and not just because of us. Everything that has happened over the last 10 years, everything that happened post COVID, all of that, I think contributed to it. So that's exciting because I think now it's evolved to our mission is to help continue to build the thriving ecosystem that I believe already exists today, right? And to help position us to be the one of the global epicenters for tech and innovation. That's like our, big mission now. And then how do we achieve that is continuing to do what we do. We want to continue to build the conference. We want to continue to attract more people to our ecosystem and continue to add programmatic efforts throughout the year. And, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, being someone born and raised here, I have never been more excited about the next 5 to 10 years. I think there's so much opportunity, tremendous amount of momentum that so many of us can leverage. And that's what we, continue to hope to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be here, and there's a lot more to come. Just the last question I have. So that's what you mentioned. 5 to 10 year time frame is like the vision for where you're at. I mean, this upcoming conference is
Mhm.
really soon. What do you hope is like the takeaway from it for people for this specific one? Is it different from previous year takeaways? And just what do you want people to really get out of it the most this year?
Yeah, I don't think it's different in what I hope the takeaway is, because it's, in my opinion, if you spend your time, which is your most precious resource, to attend and experience eMerge, you've already given up a lot. And my hope is that you walk away from there and have learned something, have met amazing people, have, encountered people that hopefully you end up developing a long relationship with, and that it was completely worth your while. And that to me does not change year after year. What changes, of course, are the speakers or the themes, what we're concentrating on, some of the experiences. Of course, we always want to strive to provide a better experience for everyone. But if, Ben, you attend and you walk away and say that was worth my time, and you're talking to your network and saying, I met some incredible people, both personally and professionally, that for me and the team is a win.
Well, I definitely did that last year.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Well, Melissa, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. And I think it's important a lot of people learn about what you're doing. So hopefully this exposes Merge to some new people. And I'm definitely excited to see what happens with this year's conference.
Thank you so much. We're super fortunate to have you in our ecosystem, and congrats on all of your success, and excited to do more together.
Thanks.